where my eyes cannot see the skies. Is this the price for having learned how not to cry? Come a little bit closer, hear what I have to say. Just like children sleeping, we could dream this night away. There's a full moon rising, let's go dancing in the light.
I'll have that.
We know where the music's playing, let's go out and feel the night. Because I'm still in love with you.
So, where are you?
I wanna see you dance again. Because I'm still in love with you. On this harvest moon. When we were strangers, I watched you from afar. When we were lovers, I loved you with all my heart. But now it's getting late, and the moon is climbing high. And I wanna celebrate, see it shining in the light. Because I'm still in love with you, I wanna see you dance again. Because I'm still in love with you. On this harvest moon. because I'm still in love with you. I wanna see you dance again because I'm still in love with you. On this harvest moon, on this harvest moon, on this harvest moon.
Okay. I know that a lot of people have staked out tables, but I am going to request that those that feel so compelled to please come this way for the program. We've got leaders from around the community as well as around the country that are going to be speaking. And if you could come this way, and then we'll go back to your tables afterwards, that would be great. And anybody that will be speaking, if you could please start to make your way up here to the new raised stage. Anyway, so we'll get going. But if everybody could come from the tables this way, thank you.
John.
You forgot to sing. John.
You forgot to sing.
Sing?
I heard you perform.
The performance I was doing was not singing.
Louder. Okay. Yeah. A lot of people have. I know that. So I think we got a light. Okay. Yeah, light. You know what? Maybe a few of us can go walk out there.
Yes, we do. Yes, if you haven't gotten your name,
Can you get Todd's if Todd's not there, then he's smart.
That's because everything's in front of him.
Espy? Where's my
Okay, so we're gonna find a final destination place for this mic. So I was doing the
Well, the thing is, they're going to be putting roses in, so I figured that if we could have, I don't want them to step in front. Okay, what are you trying to do?
I'm trying to find a final resting place for this mic.
I think that right there is a perfect final resting place. What about the other microphones? Because I have other microphones for the ones that are back there. You don't want to use them. You just want to stick to this and over there. Okay. Does that make it easier? It's different, but it works. Okay. So I want to. Okay. Thank you.
Nonprofit now.
I know. I appreciate it. So, would you want to be behind the speaker here?
Yep. Walk behind it. By the way.
Oh, the people are doing that. Yes, yes. There's going to be a procession. They'll walk up here, put a rose in.
Let me run the microphone cables in front. We don't even have to walk on the front. Because we'd really rather people interrupt roses. And can we have your feet, please?
Think you, well, not have them. They are. I've only had when I was a young kid. And then once I got through
I think Michael's going to have I think Michael's going to ask them to raise their hand.
when I was 18,
That's what I thought. But they kind of be within.
Yeah, where is she? Can you find her?
My portfolio? We started together. Okay, so as we start to get the program ready, if people could start lining this path right here and get to the table. Hi, Alice. And get to the table so when the program is done and we begin the procession for the reading of names, everybody will be sort of already in here. It's a bit sort of like a cattle chute. I hate to say that, but so you can go right up to there and everybody start, because once we start the reading, we want a nice flow to keep going. I know. People, for those of you that aren't part of the National AIDS Memorial, just count your blessings that you don't have to work with me on a daily basis. Kimberly, you can come up if you want.
I'm reading this.
Okay.
You got it, Kim? You got it?
Looking out over the
Okay.
what's in front of you.
Okay, ready, Mike?
Every time someone says, "Oh, you can't do that because I've got a cold." Killed the valve in years. Just gonna where's Valmont? Where's Valmont? Where's Timberlake? Val.
Matt, could you ask Val to come up?
Yeah. Just hold it for a while. That way you can get it.
I'll do that right before the game. Right before.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Shriver, and I have the distinct honor of serving as the chair of the board of the National AIDS Memorial. And on behalf of the board and staff and volunteers of the National AIDS Memorial, I want to welcome everybody to this incredibly significant moment in the history of the Grove. You take a look around. When I came down the path this morning, I was walking down the path with Val. The Grove was on fire. It was alive. There was noise, there was action, there was planting, there were kids, there was volunteer, they were setting up for lunch. What the Grove represents for us, what the National AIDS Memorial represents for us, is not just hope, healing, and remembrance, but also life. And in order for us, we believe as an organization, that for us to live in the present, it's essential that we remember the past, that we remember the past accurately, honestly, both emotionally and dispassionately, but that we honor the past. And I think that's what we're here to do today, is to actually make a significant step towards honoring the past, particularly the past as it impacted the hemophilia community. You know, when we decided, when the hemophilia community actually decided that this is where they wanted to have the memorial placed, this hillside behind us was a hillside. It looked anything like the other hills behind us. And in order to make this memorial what it is, we took a significant leap of faith that bulldozers and backhoes and literally removing a hill, that was going to transform itself into something that had meaning, something that had purpose and intention. We took a significant leap of faith that our staff and our volunteers and our designers and everyone involved in the project would get us to a place where we could look at and say, I'm proud of this. What I will say is, when I was coming down the walk with Val, what also struck me about seeing this feature was how much it fit. Like a jigsaw puzzle piece. It was put in the right place, like that you didn't recognize it before, but once it was put in the right place, it fit. And I think that, for us and for all the board, and if I could actually, for a moment, would all the current and former board members of the National AIDS Memorial, if you could please raise your hand and be acknowledged. These are the people that helped make this memorial live, and without whom I'm not sure what I would do with my spare time, because it takes up so much of my spare time. Anyway, I really want to welcome everybody here, and please, I want to encourage that when you're at lunch, there will be members of the board of the Grove at your table, so please take advantage of the kind of interactions that you can have. When we are complete, when this is done, and I think it's important to remember that memorials are never fully completed. Memorials always speak of progress and process. And I think it's very important that we see this memorial actually in process. It's not yet done. It will be more done as we move along. When this part up here is done, and you're sitting on the bench behind me, looking out over the meadow, in front of you, right below where I'm standing, there's going to be a poem that's going to be engraved. The dedication of the Hemophilia Circle. And I want to read you the poem because I think it really does center us for what we're about today. Our hearts bled from love, pain, and suffering, from fear and isolation. We battled on the fringe, warriors, fighting stigma, ignorance, and inaction. We came together as families, communities, and fierce friends to build community and protect one another. We felt betrayal. We learned resilience. We promise this will never happen again. So once again, on behalf of the board of directors and the staff and the volunteers, thank you all for being here today. And I'm deeply honored to be part of the organization that helped make this possible. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Again, welcome, everyone. For those of you who didn't meet me this morning, my name is John Cunningham. I'm the Executive Director of the National AIDS Memorial, and it's my honor to serve in this role, and it's been one of my greatest honors over the last 18 months to have worked so closely with a community that is bound together by the same pain, by the same epidemic, but by the same vision to embrace each other in the never-ending pursuit of healing through hope and remembrance. And so today we're here. 18 months ago, a number of us were here from the community. Phil, Jeannie White was here, Val was here, Alice was here. We had a luncheon, and it was the launch of the Oral History Project as part of our Surviving Voices program. And we had a luncheon with about 25 people. Jorg Folkley, Jorg, thank you for your work. Was here to begin the filming of the stories of the hemophilia community. I'm well aware, and I have learned, and I am blessed that my degree is in organizational psychology, because the hemophilia community has tested that every step of the way. But in that day, it became clear to me. And I know when Mike and Val were walking, and originally we were talking about putting a little boulder in, somehow remembering. Well, Mike's great at upsell. It's great to have a board chair that can upsell. But even more so when Val was conversing, and it became clear that this was something that had been waiting and yearning for in the community for a long time. So this project would not have been made possible were it not for many people. My role today, and if you'll indulge me, is to honor and to call out many of those. Over the last year and a half, I've traveled thousands of miles to 2 national meetings of the National Hemophilia Foundation, met many individuals, had many meetings, sat through many filming opportunities, and met many, many friends. As Mike said, that this project would not have been made possible were not for a number of different groups and individuals, and I want to call out. So the way that this site works, this project was given this land by the city 26 years ago, and we have a site committee that is tasked with ensuring that what goes on here continues to be done in an honor and respectful way, and that the designs are in keeping with the original designs of the memorial. And so I'd like to call out those members. And as I call your name, if you would please put your hand up. The chair of the site committee is Todd Kreider. Tom Jensen, who is a former site committee chair and board member. Carlin Holden. Nick Olgerson. Allie McCarthy. Casey Farrell. Steve Sagasser. Mike Shriver. Ken Bendonka. Martin Peachy. Ali McCarthy, and David Urbane. Another member of that committee that I didn't call out that I would like to personally reach out to, and he's with his son. Where is Dustin Moore? Dustin Moore has worked tirelessly as a landscape architect, designing this entire feature, all at donation. Thank you for your full-hearted support, Dustin, and all that you've done. The inscription that Mike read was the product of a task force that was assembled by individuals recommended by the Hemophilia Federation, the National Hemophilia Foundation, and by the Committee of 10,000. Knowing this community as well, I wanted to ensure that there was no individual that was necessarily officially representing the organization, that it was indeed community members. So I would like to read out the names of the individuals that worked tirelessly to come up with the inscription that was placed here. It was the inscription task force was chaired by Tom Jensen. Also seated on that and another co-writer was Mike Shriver, as well as Peter Mater. The honorary chair of that committee was Jeannie White-Ginder. Carl Wexler was also on the committee, Greg McClure, Dana Francis, Karen Holine, and Phil Kukab. Please give all of them a big round. I would also like to personally recognize a few very special people without whom this project would not have been made possible. All the stone that you see here is Minnesota limestone. It came in from the Midwest. And Lou Truesdell could not be with us. Lou has been a longtime supporter of the memorial, and he gave us incredibly significant cost reductions and direct donations. I believe that Jim Spar may be here. Jim, are you here? He had a soccer game with his son. So I want to call out American Soil and Stone and Lou Truesdell. I mentioned Dustin Moore from Strata Landscape Design. Tom Jensen helped to do the project management for this project, and you can well imagine the amount of the unique hands that were put in this, and I want to thank Tom for his never-ending support of the National AIDS Memorial. I think it's important to also realize that this space, if you think back 26 years ago, the city and county of San Francisco took a leap of faith at a time in this city when it had lost tens of thousands of its residents. And they entered into a public-private partnership with a yet-to-be-formed organization to create this space. This is in Golden Gate Park, which over the last 15 years has been named the #1 inner city park 12 out of the last 15 years. So I think it's a testament to the city of what was needed and what came to be. We could not do this were it not for the San Francisco Recreation and Parks Department. I want to specifically call out a couple of people. I see Nick off in the back there. Nick Olgerson, would you please raise your hand? We entered into a relationship with the city that we pay the city back 100% for all of the wages and benefits of our gardener, because we never wanted this to be placed on a chopping block of a budget. And we're so blessed to have had great relationships with gardeners over the years, but there's one particular gardener that is now our gardener that we are ever blessed to call our own. Allie McCarthy, would you please raise your hand? It is Allie's love, care, tenderness, patience, and perseverance that makes the space you're standing in today all that it is. I also want to call out and send special thanks to some of the angel donors from the hemophilia community that made this possible. Joe Pugliese, Mark Skinner, Glenn Pierce, and Vince Fasaro. Thank you so much for all your work. Over the last 7 weeks, this corner that Mike had told you was indeed just a hillside. Over the last 7 weeks, 3 men, primarily, have put this together, and then a fourth was joined the team late in the project. I would like to specifically call out the amazing work of these 4 men. All the stone that you look at is all hand chiseled, split-faced, and laid by hand. I'd like to ask Martin Peachy. Martin, where are you? Martin Peachy, Dave, Brock. Those gentlemen have been working literally 7 days a week for the last month to make this possible. Every step of the way, feeling the spirit and the memorial of what they were doing and how they did it. Gio is not able to be with us, but I also want to call Gio out for all of his work. As I said, I have truly been blessed to partner with 2 amazing organizations, the National Hemophilia Foundation and the Hemophilia Federation of America. In addition to that, we did work with the Committee of 10,000 throughout the year, and I received a phone call yesterday from Carl Wexler, who is having his 36th wedding anniversary with his wife in Myrtle Beach, and he sends his best regards to all here, and that he is here with us in spirit. Organizations are made up of individuals, and I must say that I have been blessed to meet some very special new friends. And I would just like to acknowledge these individuals. You can put your hand up or not. Jordana Zeger, Sanji Wilkes, Beth Marshall, Brett Spital, Sharon Myers, Elvira Goody, James Ueda, and Kristen Hokiamura. Thank you so much for all the work that you've done with me. I've been doing nonprofit work for a very long time, and I can tell you that the organizations that represent the hemophilia community are absolutely unwavering in their dedication and commitment to supporting those they serve. But organizations are just a reflection of the leaders. And I have had such a great honor to learn so much, to create friendships with, to be challenged by two of the greatest leaders of nonprofit organizations that I've been exposed to over my decades-long service to this epidemic. I'd now like to introduce Kimberly Hookstead and Val Baez.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kimberly Hookstead, and I'm so thankful to the AIDS Grove, and we appreciate so much everything that you've done to create this wonderful memorial for our community. At HFA, I represent the Hemophilia Federation of America, and we were founded during the 90s, during the heat of the crisis, the blood contamination and the clotting factor crisis. And so it's meaningful for us as an organization to see this progress, and as we go forward, really see the hemophilia story be known here within the greater AIDS narrative. You can't hear me? Oh, I hate speaking in public. There we go. When John asked me to say a few words at this presentation or this memorial, it took me about 3 seconds actually to come up with what we needed to really talk about, and it isn't my words at all. I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to read some narrative from others in our community. So if you'll bear with me. And I did want to make a point, and actually to those of you who are part of the National AIDS Memorial Grove, this will sound familiar, but to those of us who are new, I wanted to be sure that we knew what the mission of the AIDS Grove is. The AIDS Grove's mission is to provide a place of remembrance so that the lives of people who died from AIDS are not forgotten and the story is known by future generations. I thought that was really beautiful, and as we've done our due diligence in working with the Grove, we realize and understand at a core level that we share that mission. Absolutely. And one of the things at HFA that we pledge to do is to never forget. So we remember, and we remember our loss, and we remember failures. And what I'd like to do is just quote, Elaine DePrince wrote a book in 1997 called Cry Bloody Murder. She actually wrote the book as a reflection and a memoir of losing her two sons from AIDS, Mike, who was 15, and Cubby, who was 11. And it's a very powerful story. And in the book, Elaine writes, "I cannot repress my sorrow, my pain, and my rage. My sons were infected with HIV and died of AIDS because they used a blood product approved by the Food and Drug Administration. The FDA failed my children. The blood banking industry failed them. Government agencies failed them. The law failed them. Everyone failed them. My sons had hemophilia, but what happened to them also happened to thousands of people who didn't have hemophilia, and anyone can find himself on the receiving end of a stranger's blood." Really powerful. So as a community, we stand together and we stand up as advocates, and as a hemophilia community, we have over time demanded answers. And I wanted to share some words from Ron Niedermann. Ron is no longer with us. He was a man with hemophilia and a tireless advocate. And I had the pleasure just recently, about 6 months ago, to meet his widow, his son Dan, and his absolutely beautiful, darling grandchildren. And in 1994, Ron provided a statement at a federal public hearing about the HIV transmission through blood products. I quote, "We have as a community done all of the things expected of us. As a citizen of this great nation, we have become the businessmen, the teachers, the parents, the doctors, the lawyers. We have done these things in spite of our often intense physical pain and disabilities due to hemophilia. We've paid our taxes, we've made considerable contributions to society, and we have asked our government for very little. But now we must know why. Where was the failure in our government systems that allowed pharmaceutical manufacturers to make a known risky product, even during the time when the dangers of hepatitis were well known?" But you know, as a community, we support each other, we support and we are compassionate. And so recently, I was honored actually at the National Hemophilia Foundation to receive an award. The truly most humbling part of this award was to know that the award was given in honor of Laura Skedkin. And you may remember, those of you who were around in the 90s, you may remember reading about this Iowa family In the 1950s, typical Iowa farm family, they had 11 children in this family. Very, very common. 7 boys and 4 girls. They weren't an average family, however. They actually were a family where 6 of the 7 boys had hemophilia. There were 5 sons, Ernie, JJ, Carl, Dennis, and Loris, and along with their wives, Jan and Karen and Dennis's 4-month-old baby Clayton, they all would die of AIDS. That's 8, so you know. The stoicism of this Iowa family, despite heartbreak, is just amazing. And Loris, in particular, was such a tremendous advocate and covered thousands of miles speaking to school children all over the country about AIDS and being compassionate to people who have AIDS. Someone once said of Loris, a lot of people would have become bitter and withdrawn. Loris replaced bitterness with love. But Loris's own words may resonate best. He said, maybe AIDS is a disease God has set upon the earth to see how compassionate human beings are. Beautiful. So over the last couple of weeks, actually have had an opportunity to reach out to the Gutkin family, and she's here today. Give me a wave. Talia's here. Yes, yes. So the lady over here isn't going to have a chance to speak to all of you today, but she wrote an amazingly beautiful narrative that she shared with me yesterday. And I think you need to hear just a little piece of what she had to say in thinking about her family. She says, but now we have this. When I found out about this memorial and that my uncle's names were going to be a part of it, I was overcome. Having a tangible way to preserve their memories, to let people remember what we can never forget, it gave me a sense of hope. Hope that a tragedy like this will never again befall the hemophilia community. A sense of hope that their legacy, their journey, and our heartache will in some way be kept. They deserve to be remembered, not just by the people who love them most. I couldn't ask for a better way to keep their memories alive until we meet in heaven. Needed to hear that. Okay. So there are a lot of people, thank you, a lot of people who aren't here today. I have received dozens of emails and calls over the last few weeks of folks who truly wanted to be here but couldn't for some reason or another. And some of them have names that will be presented, some don't. But on behalf of the community, on behalf of HFA, the Blood Brothers, the Blood Brotherhood, the Blood Sisterhood, and our families, we thank you so much for the opportunity to do this. Thank you.
Kimberly did a much better job than I'm going to do because I didn't prepare any notes. First, I'm going to thank the organizations, HFA, the National Hemophilia Foundation Board, Committee of 10,000, all of our chapters who participated in making this happen. This has been a long journey for me personally, from the days when I learned I was HIV positive to the days we fought to make the plasma supply safer, not only for ourselves but for all Americans, to the days where we fought for better products. I remember as being a member of the National Hemophilia Foundation Board, we on an annual basis would visit the pharmaceutical companies, and that could have went badly. But I remember after everybody sort of had AIDS, one year we went to visit them and we expressed how sad it was that so many of us had been infected, and we said, this can't happen again. You need to work to make sure we're never exposed to anything like this again. I think we're almost there. That's when we saw recombinant products developed for this community where they have no blood in them at all. About 90% of our population is now treated with those products. We still do the work in representing this community and the rest of America on the blood supply. We still go to every blood safety meeting the federal government holds. We still watch every piece of legislation that impacts blood safety, even though the majority of our population is no longer dependent on those products. Because that's where our hearts are at. That's part of remembering what happened to us. that's part of preventing it from ever happening again. I remember with a lot of sadness and a great deal of dignity the way people came to Washington and went to congressional offices to tell their story. I'm not sure if it was any different than any other campaign, but it felt different. People went into congressional offices and they told how their children died, or their father died, or their uncle died. And it was a very personal story that they told to members of Congress, and each member signed on to support our effort to honor the folks that we had lost. Something not a lot of people know. We fell 4 co-sponsors short of having the most co-sponsors of any piece of legislation in American history. That's how successful we were. That wasn't from tricks or knowing the legislation. That was just people pouring out their hearts and convincing both sides of the aisle this was the right thing to do. That was the most tremendous thing I've ever seen. And through that work, I got to work with the National Association of People with AIDS and began to know the larger AIDS community, and became dedicated to that larger cause of AIDS and its impact on so many Americans' lives. I think it's part of the path that brought us here today. Certainly, Mike was instrumental in that. We became great friends during that time. So this really has been such a journey for so many of us, and to see this erected on behalf of those memories and that pain and that determination and that passion. There were a lot of mistakes made then. There are no heroes. Whether they were government officials or pharmaceutical companies or even our own organizations. We all failed at whatever we were supposed to do or not do. It was a tragic time. It was a piece of history that should never be lost because of the impact it had on people, because of the impact on life. I remember meeting with members of Congress about passing this bill, and some of them saying, well, we can't pass that bill because the government makes mistakes all the time, and people die from those mistakes. And if we pass this bill that essentially admits we made a mistake, then we'll have to pay for everything we do from now to the end of time. But we will pass a compassionate bill to honor those folks and provide them with compassionate payments. And that had to be enough for us in recognition of what happened to us. Strangely enough, it wasn't necessarily the deaths that occurred. It was the fact that there were so many heads of households that died, that sold members and the staffers, that not only would people with hemophilia be affected by the immediate loss of someone, but that their children would be affected for 3 generations because that head of household was gone. Those children would not either progress in life, be able to go to school, some cases not build a home, a family, because that death happened, that unfair tragedy happened in their lives. And that's a lot of what this monument represents. Now, the upside of what this monument represents to me is this has become the core and the passion of our advocacy. This is what makes bleeding disorders different. This is why we succeed where others sometimes fail. Is because this happened to us we never give up. There is no ceiling. There is no, we can't do that. There never will be. Yeah, this was a horrible thing that happened, and it changed our lives and our families' lives and our community forever. And the least that we can do is never give up, never go away. Always remember what happened and help others to get through their pain and future hurdles. And I don't know if you've noticed recently, we got a lot more hurdles to climb. So thank you to the Age Grove Board of Directors and to the Grove, and I look forward to reading the names of friends and family who passed before us.
What an honor. My name's Joe Garrett. I'm the Deputy Director of the National AIDS Memorial, and I'm really so touched to see all of you out here. I know so many of you lost loved ones, children, husbands, wives, aunts, uncles, sisters, and brothers to this disease, and let this be a time of healing. I'm struck particularly by the children who are playing in the sand over here, or the composite granite, I guess is what it is, and over here on the grass. It's the sound of the children's voices that is so beautiful coming up here through the wind. It is in the nature of stone that we do not forget. So many of them gone, lives cut short by something that was preventable, avoidable, known. It was so cruel, and it was the very treatment that we thought was lengthening their lives, improving their lives, enriching our lives. It was making our loved ones very sick. The voices calling across the yard, across the playground, across the threshold of our homes at the end of the day, those voices were silenced, except for the voices, their voices, that continue to live in our memories. It is in the nature of stone that we do not forget. I know the suffering that comes from such sudden, unexpected loss. My mother died suddenly, unexpectedly when I was a boy. I'd wake up in the morning and expect to see her, want to tell her something, want to hold her, then remember she was gone. I know how it feels to have someone ripped from you, to grieve, to feel betrayed. I also know what it means to forgive, but to not forget. I have not forgotten, but I have forgiven, and with that forgiveness has come a deeper compassion. So yes, I do understand how it feels, how it must have felt for all of you. And I know that by forgiving and remembering, we give their love for us a new resonance. It is in the nature of stone and this stunning memorial that we do not forget. Jeannie White could not be here today, but sends her blessings. Here is what she wrote to us, part of what she wrote to us a few days ago. My heart is with all of you. I want to give special thanks to John Cunningham of the National AIDS Memorial, to Val Bias of the National Hemophilia Foundation, to Kimberly Hogstead of the Hemophilia Federation of America, and most of all, to all of you for making this Hemophilia Memorial happen. This is our memorial to share with the world our story of love, loss, and renewal. We are not numbers, but real faces of entire families that endured the loss of so many due to contaminated blood products. We are not here to blame. We are here to continue to fight. We come together with love and hugs. We are no longer silent. We will stand up for new generations of hemophiliacs to make sure this does not happen again. We have voices that will always be heard. Thank you all for pulling together. This beautiful memorial will be everlasting, and tell the stories of our community, the hemophilia community, forever. The National AIDS Memorial means so much to me. I'm hopeful the healing starts now. Please look up to the heavens and blow a kiss to all those we've lost, but loved, and continue to love. Blessings, Jeannie White. Please take a moment and remember those you have lost, and if you want, blow a kiss to the heavens. It is in the nature of stone that we do not forget. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. It's my pleasure to turn the program over to Don Pollard and Bobby Weissman. Don?
Hello. I think I've just had to accept that whenever I speak about my brother, I'm overcome with emotion and usually end up crying most of the way through it. So bear with me. I looked up the definition of the word hope, and it's a feeling of expectation or a desire that something will happen, a certain something. And at 25 years old, just having learned that he was to be a new father, my brother also learned that he was HIV positive. And at that time in the 80s, that was a certain death sentence. People were not living long. There were no medications for him. I was sworn to secrecy, and I lived with that for over a decade. My brother was very fortunate to get into the very first clinical trials, and he was luckier than many people. He lived for 24 years, long enough to see his daughter grow, thrive, and complete college. But 6 years ago, he passed, and I think you all know the emptiness that was there for so many years. My best friend, the father of a young girl, the husband of a woman who loved him. We all felt the pain so deeply and didn't know what to do. He was buried in Fairfield, California, and when I go to visit his personal grave, that provides for me a time and a place where I can go and remember him. And I can sit and think of the stories and the love and the laughter that we shared. But it was only when the idea of this memorial came up that I realized that there was something bigger, that I had never really processed the larger question of how this came to happen to him and the larger community. Over the decades, I watched as his crew of 35 guys that he went to hemophilia camp with succumbed to HIV or Hep C one by one until Kurt Pollard was the last one standing. And as I sat at his grave in Fairfield, I realized that he had been a part of something bigger and that I needed to get out of my personal grief, and that the only way that I would heal is if I had the collective support of all of you who had been through what my family had been through. Our circumstances are different, but in many cases the end result was the same. We lost people who didn't deserve to be lost, who could have, their deaths could have been prevented. And the phrase that kept ringing in my ears was that so many of these people died due to a failure of our community and institutions to protect them, and that was rooted in bigotry. And that is why the alarm bell was not rung early enough. But here we are today, and we're in a place of remembrance. So not only can I go to his individual grave to remember him, but I can come here now and be touched by the healing and by the hope that as we go forward, this will never, ever, ever be allowed to happen again. Never, not for 1 minute. And to all of you who have that ache in your heart, because I still ache for my brother. I still ache for all the children, the husbands, the uncles, the spouses, that as we're here together, please stop, let me give you a hug, because love is all there is. It's all we have now, and let's work together to keep this place beautiful and as a place of peace for all of us. Thank you.
You know, I'm keeping it together because y'all know me very well. It's appropriate that we're here in the Grove. We're in nature. There's a tradition in many of the Bleeding Disorders summer camp programs as we weathered through the storm of the contamination issues to have a memorial either at the beginning of the week or at the end of the week where we would water a tree. This morning saw many people both from the Bleeding Disorders community and from outside of it banding together. This is the beginning of a process where there's internal and external healing. I received a large amount of phone calls and emails from individuals who could not be here because they're not ready yet. This is the opening door so that all of our communities can come together. We need this time together of hope, healing, and restoration. To see multiple children running around, some with bleeding disorders, some without. To see various individuals from all walks of life banding together, hugging each other where people did not know each other 3 hours ago. To see national organizations and local organizations all banding together for a common cause. This is what community is about. This is not necessarily a sad moment, yet a moment of beginning a new journey. A new journey where we can look into our own lives and say, who do I need to talk to just to say hello who I haven't talked to in a while? Who in the family has not been around? Who is that person that I need to reach out to? This is also that time for all of our communities, whether gay, because I am, straight, or what have you, come together. This is family. Does everybody turn around and look? Does everybody turn around and look? Come on, look. Just look. Just look at this. This would not have happened a number of years ago. This is the appropriate time. Let it continue from here.
All right. So we're going to continue in a tradition that started 26 years ago. It's going to be a little bit of a variation for today, but at the close of every workday, we have what we call a healing circle, where we get in an enormous circle and we ring a Tibetan bell and we speak aloud the names of individuals that we want remembered. Today, we're going to do that with you in the hemophilia community. I'm going to ask Paul Huffstedler, who's one of our longtime board members and recently stepped off, who has been running Circle Time for many years. So if people could start to come up to the edge here, that would be great, right up to here, if you could release them. I am going to read a name. I will then place a rose in a vase, and then you will all begin. Please place a rose in a different vase than the person in front of you. That's how it will get rotated. All right, if I may, Ryan White.
Howard G. King. Anthony Swerkowski
Peter Swerkowski.
Michael Kevin Shea, Dana Francis.
Thomas Joseph Fahey, Jr.
Two friends who were incredible volunteers for the National Hemophilia Foundation, Bill and Kathy McAdam. For 30 years, I lived with HIV and Hep C, and it's been that long, my little brother Michael succumbed to it.
Sean Cobb, Jason Cobb, Paul Brash, Eric Delson. The next names are medical professionals who worked with patients with HIV for many years, and we want to acknowledge their contributions. Dr. Keith Hoots, Dr. Jean Lusher, Dr. Carol Casper, Dr. Shelby Dietrich, Dr. Bruce Evett, Dr. Richard James.
Michael and Kathy Giris, Anthony A. Ronaldo, George Ronaldo, David Silver, Andy Blackledge, Stephen Blackledge, Glenn and Beatrice Pierce.
Anthony Joseph DeFalco and Nicholas Ronald DeFalco, Joseph Hayek, and the lady who just spoke to before me, Dr. Marion Kerber.
Susan Karp and Louis Parra.
Michael Pollard and Kurt Pollard.
Our brother,
Daniel Neal Bonet.
John Lander.
It's going to take a moment. My wife, Katie Bias, Tim Hawes, Paul Haas, Greg Haas, Michael Tuberdick, Mark Skinner and James Matheson, Shahik Gregorian, Shannon Penberthy, Randy Feniger, Renee Paper, Marilyn Ness, Larky Deneff, Jonathan Vitello, Timothy Andrews, Brian Kraft, Stephen Gray Keel, and Brett Leach.
Brian Bircher.
Ivan Escobar.
Dale Dickinson.
Don Braun, Marshall Porter, and Nick Lee.
Terry Lewis Dogdale and Jeffrey Hill Dogdale.
Randy Fulton Jones.
Stephen A. Munger.
As an HIV survivor, I want to thank you all for being here today so very, very much. Daniel Rogers, Peter J. Jacques.
My wife, Patty Klein Kuhn.
Our father, Danny Tyree, and the Atkinson family.
My dad, Robert John Seifert.
Joseph Bordango.
Jose Jimenez.
Butch Justinger.
Cole Michael Hempstead.
Tommy Getkin, Ernie Getkin, Carl Getkin, Dennis T. Getkin, Clayton T. Getkin, Karen Wilson, JJ Getkin, Jan Getkin, Loris Getkin, my uncles, my aunts, my cousin.
Tommy Kappenstein.
James Jimmy Hamilton.
My dad, John Warren Kavanaugh, and our good friend, Stephen J. McKenna.
James Dan Minish.
Oh, this is for my son, Jason Fulton, and my entire family that is here with us today, and our friends. Thank you for helping Jason and I get through this, and all the hemophilia blood brothers that he lost in camp.
Christopher Connolly and my brother, Jason Neal Fulton.
Arthur J. Hecker.
Kelly Lee Posey.
Christopher J. Hayes. Alfonso Bordengo.
Bill Scarborough.
My big brother, Ben Euler.
Robert Price.
Gary Oxley. Thomas E. Oxley.
Scott G. Munger.
Ivan A. Gonzalez.
Joseph Patrick Grant and John Francis Hardy, brother-in-law and brother to Barry Hardy.
Rich Davis.
Ricky, Robert, and Randy Ray.
Millie Gonzalez.
Dustin Flores.
Mary Barfield Erdo.
Becker Gregorian.
Chris Kozlerich.
E.W. Bill Goldstun.
Mark Rosenwald.
William McCartney.
Rick Emerson and Steve Emerson.
Jason M. Nelson.
Leo Murphy.
Jim Livershaw.
Douglas Stewart Faust.
Daniel Gallagher.
Brent Runyon.
Nathan Smith.
Marcus Darnell McClure.
Ellen Riker.
Ron and Tim Matteo, Charles Carmen.
John Indens.
Billy Chetwood.
Jeffrey Graham Cadell.
Papo Gonzalez.
Diane Yvonne McClure.
David John Matchev.
Lawrence Medeiros.
Christopher D. Robinson.
Bradley Price.
Rich Vogel.
Will Demers.
Ronald Sholo.
Jim Carey, beloved son, father, husband, grandfather.
George McCoy.
Michael Shomo.
In memory of Don Coburn, Christopher Pitkin, Richard John Maynard, and in honor of Tony Maynard.
Gina Maynard, and in honor of Kate and Craig Buer.
My father, Doug McDonald, and on the 20th anniversary of his death, my cousin, Aaron Thomas Tollickson.
My husband, David McKay, and his cousin, Wayne Lemry.
Mike and Geraldine Crosby.
John Edward Masegli.
Joseph Silverman, MD.
Bobby Steinhardt.
Edmund Powell Carpenter.
Andrew Weiss, Stephen Reisenfeld.
Jim and Betsy Golfling.
Jan Hamilton, Alejandro, Alex Rodriguez.
Robert Luckett. Richard C. Nagler. Bobby J. Mitchell II.
To a man who should be here today and should have been speaking today, Corey Dubin.
Eldon Bryson.
Brad Cross and David Riker.
Ellis D. Sulzer, Stephen Cullingusker, and Matthew Stinger.
Robert Leo K. Smith.
Orlando Wilson Montijo and James Pasilio.
Gregory A. McKinney. Craig Pearson. Richard Taberdick.
Michael Breinman, William Rottenberg, Timothy Sean Carroll, and Edward John Masagli. And let's not forget Dennis M. Mermeloid.
Chris L. Steiner and Anthony Michael Tody.
Mike Saccone.
And Patrick Bryson.
Michael Sutton, Esquire.
Beth Carew.
Eli L.O. Punch and Steve Gilbertson.
Paul Koslerich Jr.
John Lanson.
Kathy Pitkin.
Eric Masick, Patty Tobase, Rudy Ochoa.
Jerry Mushauer and Debbie Porter. And Jeffrey and Sue Mullen.
Val Bias.
Todd Smith, and all the names that wanted to be here but are not here, but one day they will be here.
I think the Spirit is with us. I think all those names reside here. As Jeannie has had said so many times, when she comes here, she feels Ryan. I hope all of you feel the loved ones that are in your heart. Let's take just one moment before we go over to the buffet lines. We probably got more people than we do seats. I ask everybody to share tables. If you've got a space for somebody that has mobility issues, or if you could give your seat up to somebody that does have mobility issues, that would be greatly appreciated. And one last piece of business, because my staff member will kill me if I don't do it, that would be Matt. Next weekend is Folsom Street Fair. And we are still looking for volunteers The organization stands to make over $25,000, and we still need 3 hospitality individuals, treasury runners, coat check, floaters. If you are at all interested and you can do 4 hours out of your weekend next weekend to be at the street fair, please see Matt Kennedy right here. We only need 4 or 5 people, so please, if you can, we would be deeply appreciative. On behalf again of the National AIDS Memorial, to the hemophilia community, welcome to the family. Thank you. Enjoy your lunch.